I thought she was asleep. Until she said, stay, just until the sun comes up. He had learned to stop expecting anything good from life, and then she whispered 3 words that shook something loose inside his chest that he didn't even know was still there. Marcus had been closing up the garage alone for the 3rd night in a row when she walked in. It was nearly 10 o'clock, the kind of hour when the town had already given up on the day, and he was covered in grease up to his elbows, running on cold coffee and the hollow satisfaction of having fixed other people's broken things while his own life sat in pieces. He didn't look up when he heard the door. He just called out that they were closing, that whatever it was would have to wait until morning. But she didn't leave. She stood there in the low amber light of the garage, her purple top catching the glow from the single overhead bulb, and she said her car had died 2 blocks away and her phone was at 2% and she just needed a moment, just one moment, to figure out what to do next. He looked up then. And something about the way she said it, not desperate, not demanding, just quietly honest, made him set down his wrench and actually listen. Her name was Lily. She told him that much while he grabbed his jacket from the hook on the wall and offered to walk with her to the car. She didn't ask for the help, but she didn't refuse it either, and that small act of graceful acceptance struck him in a way he couldn't quite name. They walked 2 blocks in the warm night air, and she talked, not nervously, not to fill silence, but like someone who had been carrying words around all day and finally found a safe place to set them down. She said she was passing through town, that she'd been doing a lot of that lately, just passing through places without really stopping, without really staying anywhere long enough to leave a mark or be marked by it. Marcus understood that more than she knew. He had stayed in one place his whole life and still managed to feel like he was always passing through. The car was a lost cause for the night, a dead alternator. He diagnosed it in under a minute, and she stood there looking at it with an expression that wasn't quite defeat but was standing very close to it. He told her there was a motel 3 streets over, nothing fancy, but clean and safe, and she nodded slowly like she was memorizing the information but didn't fully trust her legs to carry her there. He offered to call her a ride. She said that was kind. And then, almost to herself, she said she couldn't remember the last time someone had been kind to her without wanting something in return, and the words came out so quietly and so genuinely that Marcus felt them land somewhere behind his ribs. If you believe in kindness and second chances, that strangers can change everything and that one unexpected night can rewrite a person's whole story, then like this video, drop a comment below, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. We tell the stories that remind us what being human really means, ***. He didn't intend for the night to become what it became. He drove her to the motel, helped her check in, and then stood in the parking lot for a moment too long, not quite ready to go back to the garage, back to the silence that waited for him there like an old bruise. She noticed. She was standing in the doorway of her room, the warm light spilling out behind her, and she said he could come in for a few minutes if he wanted, just to sit, just to rest, the way she said it making it sound like rest was a radical and generous thing to offer someone. He almost said no. He had built an entire life out of almost saying no to anything that felt like it might matter. But he said yes. They sat across from each other at the small table by the window, and they talked in the way that people only talk in the deep hours of the night, when the usual armor comes off and what's left is just the truth of a person, undecorated and undefended. She told him about the year she'd had, the relationship that had ended like a building collapsing, slowly and then all at once. The job she'd loved and lost. The way she had started driving one morning just to feel like she was moving forward even if she didn't know where forward was. And Marcus listened. He listened the way he had never let himself listen to anyone, with all of himself, without waiting for his turn to speak, without half his mind already somewhere else. He listened like what she was saying mattered. And it did. He told her things too, eventually. About his father's garage that he'd inherited along with his father's silence and his father's loneliness. About the girl he'd loved at 22 who had wanted him to leave this town and build something bigger and how he'd been too afraid to go and too proud to admit it. About how some mornings he woke up and the first thought he had before he even opened his eyes was a flat, gray nothing, not sadness exactly, just absence. She listened to all of it without flinching, without offering easy comfort, just holding the space for his words the way good people do. Somewhere past midnight, the conversation slowed into something quieter, and she moved to the small couch and curled into the corner of it, her eyes growing heavy. He thought she had fallen asleep. He sat still for a long time, not wanting to move and break something that felt fragile and important. He was reaching for his keys, preparing himself to step back out into his ordinary life, when her voice came, soft, barely above a breath, but perfectly clear. Stay. Just until the sun comes up. He froze. And then, slowly, he set his keys back down on the table. He didn't know what it meant, that request. He didn't know if she was half dreaming or fully awake or somewhere in that trembling space between. But he knew that it was the most honest thing anyone had said to him in years. Not stay forever. Not fix everything. Just stay until the light comes. Just be here for the dark part. That was all. That was everything. He stayed. When the first gray light began to push through the curtains, she was awake, sitting up, watching the sky shift from black to blue to gold. They didn't speak for a long time. They just watched it together, this ordinary miracle of a new day arriving whether you were ready for it or not. And Marcus felt something in him that had been locked for so long it had started to feel like part of his bones, begin, slowly and painfully and beautifully, to open. She left that morning after he fixed her alternator, and he stood in the garage doorway watching her car disappear around the corner. He didn't have her number. He didn't know her last name. But he carried her with him from that day forward the way you carry a song that someone sang once near an open window. You don't own it, you can't keep it, but it changes the way you hear everything else. Some people don't come into your life to stay. They come to remind you that staying, really staying, being present, being soft enough to ask and brave enough to answer, is the most extraordinary thing a human being can do. If this story found you at the right moment, if it cracked something open or warmed something cold, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that kindness still exists, and subscribe to Kindness Corner so you never miss a story like this one. Drop a comment below and tell us, has a stranger ever changed your life in a single night? We read every single one, because the sun always comes up. And sometimes, all we need is someone willing to stay until it does.